Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the Webb Show. This is an interesting one tonight because this is what I'm calling the Just Chatting episode. What does that mean? Well, if you don't already know, if you're listening back later after the fact, we live stream this every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. And most of the time, the Webb Show is about bringing gaming news, but in the description, you'll also notice that I have listed slice of life. And that's a little bit of kind of what I'm wanting to do with this today. So I'm actually going to switch up our camera view for those of you who are watching the video. It's going to look a little bit different. It's going to look like a live stream because it is a live stream. You're going to see a little Pokemon pop up on the bottom with everybody that's here in the live chat, which is pretty fun. I'm not going to play any music because it is still being, recorded, but all the alerts and everything like that are going, as well as chat. And what I want to talk about tonight, I'm going to look into any news real quick that's worth covering, but really there's not from what I can tell anyway, there's not really a whole lot of stuff going on in gaming news. I got a lot, actually one of the things I want to talk about, I got a lot of comments on YouTube for last week's episode, and I would like to just dive into those perhaps a little bit. Let's see here. Let's do that right now. Let's go to last week's episode, and we got 6 comments, which means that there's not any more. I just want to talk about that. So we're going to talk a little bit about last episode because I made a statement that was kind of in line with the idea that Xbox is basically a third party, and there's this dude named Grayson that was like, PlayStation's also a third party, and I was like, well, let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So that's one of the things. I also want to talk to you guys about something kind of like an initiative that I had started at the beginning of the year that is really dear to my heart. I think it's a really cool concept, and I haven't taken an episode to really talk a lot about it. And so I'm going to talk a lot about it this episode. And anybody that's here live on Twitch, I'll be reading chat and talking to you guys. But I also clearly, as you're going to see in a minute, I clearly am very active with comments, both on YouTube and wherever they come from. So leave comments. I like talking with people, even if we disagree. Like, that's not even a problem for me. I just like talking with people. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this thing called the Gamer Club, what it is, and how you can get involved if you're interested. And we'll just kind of let the course of the evening go from that. Like, let it go. I am not good at doing just chatting streams, but I really like them. Every time I've done just chatting, by the time that, enough people in chat kind of get there that we're just rolling and vibing and everything, I really like them. I really like just chatting streams. And so I want to maybe lean into that a little bit more. Obviously I have this podcast. I have another podcast that happens on Twitch live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern called Tangle Christianity, where we're talking. It's completely different from the gaming realm. It's talking about theology, if we can know truth, or is there truth? If there is truth, can we know it? And it's a dialogue primarily between myself and another streamer, P. Tony. We agree on a lot of things, but we also come from kind of different viewpoints. And so there's plenty that we also don't agree on. So we talk a lot there. So I guess I'm always talking. But I like just kind of chilling and hanging out too. I think that's one of the reasons that anytime there is a Nintendo Direct or a PlayStation State of Play or anything like that, I love streaming it, reacting to it, and hanging out. And I need to do a better job of turning that into actual like not evergreen, but on-demand content. Need to do a better job about that because that's a little tough. But let's start by jumping into these comments. So this was on the episode 62. Xbox really is basically a third party now. We talked a little bit about stuff. This is the comment chain. I'm going to read through the whole chain, and I just want to share my thoughts more in depth. And I want to know what you guys think about my responses. But PlayStation, Gray says PlayStation is also third party since their games are going to PC. In the video, I made the assertion that Xbox is acting like a third party and may be getting close to something that we saw with Sega. That was my assumption because at this point, they're posting the logos of other brands on their developer directs and on their Xbox showcases. If it's coming to another platform, they're going to put that platform on the screen, which we've never seen before. That's not even that big of a deal to me. They are releasing pretty much every bit of their first party like games, keep in mind, guys, first party doesn't mean that it's only on a console. It means that it's made by those people or a deal is made. So, like, for example, Spyro 1, 2, and 3, the first ones on the PlayStation 1, they were exclusive to the Sony PlayStation. However, they were not necessarily first party games. They kind of were. I mean, I know why people thought of them, but they were owned by Universal Studios, Activision, and developed by Insomniac Games. That is why you see what has happened today, which is that there's been a little bit of change of hands. Different developers have made Spyro games, and Activision's held on to it. And then when Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard King, then they got the rights to a lot of IPs, like Crash, like Spyro. They already had Banjo-Kazooie. They have all the platformer IPs, and I'm nervous about that. Anyway, not all of them, but like some pretty big ones to me. So, just because a game is only on a system for a time being or perpetually doesn't necessarily mean that it is that studio, like that it was made by a studio or published by a console manufacturer. Sometimes it is. Like a lot of times, like for example, Pokemon is always on the Switch. Pokemon is made by the Pokemon Company or Game Freak, but it's published by Nintendo. Nintendo also owns like a third share in the Pokemon Company, so it's an interesting case because it's kind of a Nintendo game as well. But it's published by Nintendo, and Nintendo owns a third share of the Pokemon Company. Thus, Pokemon is almost a double A game in that it's not fully developed by a company or a developer that is owned by Nintendo, but Nintendo has put a lot of money in on both fronts, and it cannot be on anything else. And so in that sense, I don't know. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. So I was saying Xbox is putting all the stuff that they publish and is being made by studios that Microsoft owns, so they have both of those. They are putting those on other platforms. Games like Sea of Thieves. They publish Sea of Thieves. They own Rare, who developed Sea of Thieves, and it's on PlayStation. Or games like what we're expecting to see with Halo, where they own they are the publisher, and they own the studio that made it. Games like, I suspect we'll see Gears of War go there. They own the publisher, or they are the publisher. They own the team that made it. We are for sure seeing Indiana Jones, the newest Indiana Jones game, coming to PlayStation. You get the idea. Minecraft is on PlayStation and Switch, and it's published by and Mojang is owned by Microsoft. You understand what I'm saying? That's not necessarily the case with PlayStation. But anyway, let's read through these chats. Gray says PlayStation is also a third party since their games are going to PC. This was my response. I said, PC isn't really seen as a competing console, but I do hear your point, and I stand by that. You won't see any of Sony's exclusive games going to Xbox or Nintendo, though. So also, Sony doesn't release all of its exclusives on PC, and the ones that it does release normally take at least a year before we see them there. Xbox releases their games day and date on PC, and lately no longer than a few months on competing consoles. I wouldn't be surprised if we begin to see day and date releases on other consoles with future titles from Microsoft Studios. That's what I stand by. Gray says he gives some examples, and I'm going to actually respond to them holistically with another response to a different chat. But he says MLB The Show is on Game Pass and Lego Horizons is on Switch, plus Death Stranding just came to Xbox. And then another dude named Duser or D-User, I don't know, he says Webby Pumpkin, Lego Horizons, Death Stranding, and all the Final Fantasy games. Why lie? And that's the part that made me want to talk about this, because this is frustrating. I didn't lie, and I tend to try to avoid lying whenever possible. It's definitely not a lie. If I sometimes am mistaken, but I'm not going to outright lie. So I wanted to lovingly eat this guy's lunch. So this is what I said. I said, I'll concede that Lego Horizon Adventure is an interesting case to the contrary, though I do expect that the Lego side of the IP has influenced its release on more than just PlayStation. There's a huge market share for a game like that on Switch. Lego has a great relationship with Nintendo. Like Lego, the company, the one that's owned by Disney, has a great relationship with Nintendo. And so I think they pushed Sony to be like, hey, let's put it over here also. We'll make a lot of money. And Sony was like, that's fine. But one thing for sure, we're not putting it on Xbox. That's our competitor. That's what I think happened there. Death Stranding, this is important here, okay? Death Stranding is owned by Kojima Productions. And Sony, even though Sony was the original publisher, Kojima has obtained the full rights. That is why you're seeing games like Death Stranding come to other platforms. It is not a first-party game. It's not a Sony-owned game. Kojima owns the game, and he put it on everything else after he obtained full rights to it. It's a Kojima game. We got Willpog coming in with a party of 6. Thank you for rating, Willpog. I appreciate you. Willpog, thank you so much. You just landed yourself on my podcast called The Webb Show. Tonight is the Just Chatting episode, so we're super involved in chat, and we're talking about a little dispute that I had on last week's episode in the YouTube comments. So talking about whether or not Xbox is acting like a third party or not, and whether or not PlayStation also is. Chizo also says, I think I heard Pocket Pair has an awesome relationship with Nintendo. I would love to talk about Pocket Pair. Let me pocket that for a second, and we'll come back to Pocket Pair because I got so many thoughts about them. And I've been meaning to do a full YouTube video on Pocket Pair. But Willpog, thank you so much. I love Just Chatting. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for the raid and for trusting me with your viewers. Okay. So anyway, he says like Lego Horizon, Death Stranding, and the Final Fantasy games. So it's important to note, Death Stranding is owned, like I said, by Kojima Productions. Hideo Kojima made the game, and now he has full rights to it. That's why we're seeing it go to other places. It is not owned by Sony, thus it is not a Sony first-party game. Similarly, Square Enix both is the developer and the publisher for every one of the Final Fantasy games. It has never, they had an exclusivity deal, but it's never been owned by Sony. They've had exclusivity deals with Sony, similar to like what I said with the Activision or Universal owned game made by Insomniac, Spyro, or the Naughty Dog made Activision owned game Crash that was a mascot for PlayStation. Sony never owned it. Sony never owned that, and that's why they still don't. That's why Microsoft owns those now, because they bought them. They were owned by a different company, Activision. Okay. That's what's happening with Square Enix. They have also had exclusivity deals with Nintendo for handheld copies of games like Kingdom Hearts. So up until Kingdom Hearts 3, all of the mainline console games that I'm aware of Kingdom Hearts by Square Enix, Squaresoft for the first one, I think, they all went to PlayStation. All the handheld games, like 365, 360-something over 2 days, all of those went to Nintendo. None of those went to Vita. Until... obviously, like, Square Enix can do what it wants, and I think Square Enix has actually even gone on the record lately of saying that they're interested in expanding outside of the deals and previous relations they've had with Sony, because there's just more money to be made by putting it on other things. But all of those games we've seen on Xbox and on PC, Square Enix is not a first-party game. So, in my opinion, my argument stands. The difference for Xbox is that titles like Halo, Sea of Thieves, Gears of War, Indiana Jones, they're published by Microsoft, developed by studios that are owned by Microsoft, and those games are going to other platforms. That was the whole shebang. That's the thing. You got it. Chizo, let's talk about Palworld a second. Palworld is currently or Pocket Pair, the developers for Palworld, are currently being sued in a Japanese court by Nintendo for patent infringement, which is I have some issues with that. So I want to really like Nintendo. I'm actually going to kind of hype up some older Nintendo games later in this episode of the podcast. I want to love Nintendo, because I do like their games. I think that Nintendo takes fun and packages it into a little cartridge, or it'll be a little disc for the GameCube. It packages it on these little platforms, and it just delivers it. And they're very good at that. They're not the only ones that make fun, but when they swing, they don't often miss. But the more not industrial, but like corporate, I guess, side of Nintendo, the side of Nintendo that needs to be a business and needs to protect its IP, can be insufferable at times. One of the ways that I think they're insufferable is through the practice of patenting game mechanics. So there are a lot of similarities, don't get me wrong, in art style between Palworld and Pokemon. But I think that even in Japan, Nintendo realizes that they don't have a strong enough case to go after them for copyright infringement of these designs. Otherwise, that's what they do. Because in the court, copyright is less dangerous, if you will. Like you have less to lose in a copyright dispute as you do a patent dispute, and then the like pièce de resistance. I can't say that all right. The cream of the crop, the top of it, you'd have the most potential to lose would be in a trademark case. So, Nintendo, trademark. Patent, the things that they make and do, and like the way that those things work. And then copyright is like pretty much the way that they look, and designs like that can be copyright infringement. They're not going after copyright. They're going after game mechanics, patents that they have that are as shallow as throwing an object to catch a creature within a 3D space. A mechanic that they did, to be fair, in the United States, they patented after Palworld was released. But to be fair, and to their credit, that patent was filed before Palworld was released, but then updated a little. Like there was a revision to it after Palworld's release. The thing is, Pocket Pair has another game. Palworld isn't Pocket Pair's first game. It has a little game called Craftopia that had the same mechanic where you could throw an item. I think they're like triangles or something, or cones. Not cones. What are those called? Pyramids. Yeah, duh. A 3D triangle is a pyramid. It's like these like pyramids that you throw in that game. I didn't get too far in it. It's not that good of a game, to be honest, but you throw those, and they work very, very much alike to the Pal spheres in Palworld. So that game came out before the initial patent that Nintendo supposedly filed because of Pokemon Legends Arceus. So my hot take, it's not that hot of a take anymore. My whole take with that conversation is just I think it a bit unfitting. Maybe unfitting is not the right word. I think it in poor taste that Nintendo is doing this, and I think it sets a bad precedent for innovation in the game, like in the world of game development. I understand protecting things that you've come up with that are really unique, but I do think it's stifling, and they may have every right to do it, and they do have every right. It does seem a little shady, like they're only doing this to make an example of Palworld, which I do think is the case, because this little company called Game Freak needed help publishing a game and needed some support, so they found a company called Nintendo, and they came together, and they formed a third company called the Pokemon Company, which is owned in these in thirds by Nintendo, Game Freak, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. Never mind. It'll come to me. Well, that's not so different from what's happening with Pocket Pair, who signed a deal with Sony Music, ironically enough, not Sony like games or pictures, but Sony Music and Animax, because so we have this trifecta again. Oh, that's what it was. It's whatever it is the one that makes an anime. Like Pokemon anime is huge. The whole IP of Pokemon is just like massive. Well, Palworld could be set up to do the same thing in that it would have the backing of a big conglomerate like Sony, which still could have beef with Nintendo because of what happened with the Nintendo PlayStation. Go check out your history for that one. And then you have Pocket Pair, who can make the games, and then you have Animax that could easily turn Palworld into an anime, something probably more teen adult focused, but something that could be a direct competitor to Pokemon. And since they do look similar enough, it could damage the trademark of Pokemon and Nintendo. Willpog says trademarking IP is okay, but trademarking a game mechanic is bad for gaming. Can stifle innovation. Well, let's make sure we get our terminology right, because trademarks are like. So let me show you, like, for example, let me pull up Nintendo's logo. Okay, you see this little thing, this little R right here? That's a trademark. This logo, this one as well, is a trademark. Probably this one as well. There's there's the TM. This logo is a trademark of Nintendo. This is I can't use this. This is stronger than a copyright or a patent. This is the brand. Okay, something like the next most popular patent is for something called the Nemesis system that we saw in Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, which was basically an AI where as you defeated an enemy, it could come back and it would remember your interaction before. And that's a mechanic. You can patent the way a controller works. And I'm not picking on you. It's just important because when we start talking about like what Nintendo can and can't legally do, it can get hairy. So that's the only reason I'm being meticulous with it. That could be, the way that what we suspect to be the little mouse on the new Switch, or the motion controls, or the IR sensor, like all the way all that works together with the current Switch is patented. They're also patenting mechanics, the way a game is played. In this case, throwing an item to catch a creature within a 3D space. That's one of the things that's being that had been patented. And then you have something like copyright. I'm just going to look at Palworld versus Pokemon Designs. This would be a case for copyright, where this is a piece of art that Nintendo says, all right, we own this one. This one looks the same. And this can get a little hairy, too. I think some people take a little bit of liberty. Like when you take these two sheep here, what is it? Wool something? I don't know. I forget the name of this one. I do know these. That's just a lamb. Like, that's a little too generic and based off a real-life animal that I don't know if that should hold up. This is a little bit stronger. Lucario is based off the Egyptian god Anubis. Anubis in Palworld is also based off of that. Why wouldn't they look similar? Anubis is a god with a dog head. You know what I mean? So I get it. I do get the similarities. That's why I think Nintendo knows that they don't really have a strong copyright case, and if they did, a little slap on the wrist and some, payback, some damages would probably be the bulk of what would happen. So all that to say, I will say that I think Nintendo is trying to make an example of Pocket Pair because Pocket Pair signed this deal with Sony and Aniplex. Is it Animex or Aniplex? Let me Google that so I don't misspeak. It's Aniplex. They signed a deal with Aniplex, which is the owner of Crunchyroll, to give you an idea of how important this is. They could dramatically distribute a Palworld anime, and it could get huge. And then you look at something like Groki. I think it's Groki. I can't remember if Groki is the Pokemon or the PAL. Okay, Groki, let's see if I can find the monkey. The monkey is called Tansy. Okay, so we got Tansy versus Groki. Tansy versus Groki. Groki, not Groki, Groki. I think that was the argument. So you got Groki, you got Tansy. They are not the same. Here's a side by side. This is what I'm needing. They don't look the same, but they are close. They are close. Maybe even like a green Apom thing. To the point that if you have an adult-oriented or a teen-oriented anime with these guys running around with guns, a mom might mistake this for a Pokemon and not buy a Pokemon game or buy a Pokemon plush for her child because she doesn't want her child around AKs. You know what I mean? And so there is a potential that it could damage Pokemon's trademark if it gets big enough. And with Aniplex and Sony behind them, it could get big enough. It could get big enough. All right, let me jump into chat and read what everybody's saying real quick. Jesus says patenting. Will Pog says I meant patenting. Sorry, no, you're good. Just replace trademark with patenting, and that's my take. I don't agree with patenting game mechanics, basically. I agree with you for the most part. I can't think of an example where I would disagree with the idea, like they should be able to patent that. But, because you're not really protecting it. Like when you throw a ball and catch something, I would rather, if you're going to mechanic it or patent a mechanic, I would just want it to be dramatically specific. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you throw a Pokeball, but they throw an item. So it doesn't even matter what shape it is. It doesn't matter what any of that looks like, anything like that. And you're infringing on the copyright. And I think that's just a little further than where I'd like to let that rest. It's not up to me. Let me go ahead and point that out too. It's certainly not up to me what happens. But I do think that this case, whatever, I wonder how close we are on that case too. Let's see if we have any updates. Let me look that up. This will send ripple effects through the game industry. Let's see if we have any more updates. This will send ripple effects through the game industry. Like no matter what happens, this could just get wild. You know what I mean? All right, I want the update 25. I want the most recent article I can find real quick. This is 5 days ago from IGN. Let's look at this together about Palworld. Maybe this is a Palworld episode. Palworld hits 32 million players during year 1 as Nintendo Pokemon lawsuit looms over horizon. Okay, this is it. In November, PokePair confirmed the 3 Japanese-based patents. Can we see what those patents were? I couldn't remember what the other ones are. What are the 3 patents? Okay, we got patent. Here's one. We've got game program, game system, game device, and game process method. Game program, game system, classification. I want to know. All right, here we go. Game processing method are provided that enable a player character to perform various types of actions on a field in a virtual space. In a first mode, the aiming direction within the virtual space is determined based on the second operation input and based on a third operation input. The player character is caused to fire an item that affects a field character placed on a field in the virtual space in the aiming direction. In a second mode, the aiming direction is determined based on the second operation input and based on the third operation input. The player character is caused to fire a combat character that will engage in combat in the aiming direction. Oh my gosh! So this is you can't throw an item in a Pokemon or a creature pops out of it in the direction of another creature that you're going to try to attack. What? Okay, let's look at all of these patents. Hold on, I haven't read all of them. Let's read all these patents. All right, this is patent JP7493117B2. Don't have to remember that. Let's see. Description. This is a lot. I'm trying to, there's a lot of writing here. I'm trying to flesh it out so you guys want to hear it. Simulating parties, behavior, emotion, or objects in the game world. Computing tire load in a car race game using determination of contact between game characters or objects to avoid collision between virtual racing cars. What? They somehow infringed on a race car patent? I don't even understand how that happened. Wait, no. That's just the same classification. Okay, hold on. We're going to figure this out. Maybe I don't know how to read this. Maybe Chizo said, is Nintendo going to sue the Ghostbuster franchise next? Possible. Wilpog says, but a digital Pokeball is more of a copyright dispute than a mechanic patent. I can see a situation where a patent on mechanic is valid. Well, the design of a Pokeball, the art is a copyright issue, but the mechanic of throwing the ball, that is a mechanic, the act of throwing a ball, as they put it, in a 3D space. It is it is technically the whole, that is the movement. I want a full breakdown, and it's hard to do that because this is translated from Japanese. Patent implies publication date. These are all conventionally. There are programs in which player character throws. All right, this is it. Okay. Conventionally, the present invention relates to a game program, a game system, a game device, a game processing method that performs processing on a character in a virtual space. Conventionally, there are game programs in which a player character throws a ball at a character in a virtual space, capturing the character and setting it in the player character's possession. For example, see non-patent document 1. Catching wild Pokemon online, the Pokemon Company searched on. Okay, hold on. However, in the game program disclosed in the above-mentioned non-patent document, the ball can only be thrown to capture characters during battle, and the ball cannot be thrown on the field. Therefore, an object of the present invention is to provide a game program, a game system, a game device, and a game processing method that enables a player character to perform various types of actions on a field in a virtual space. To achieve the above objective, the present invention may adopt, for example, the following configuration. One configuration example of the game program of which presents invention causes a computer of an information processing device to switch at least between a first mode and a second mode based on a first operation input, and in the first mode causes the computer to determine an aiming direction in a virtual space is a lot of jargon. Based on a second operation input and causes the player character to fire an item that affects a field character placed on a field in the virtual space in the aiming direction. Based on a third operation input, we've already read that. As described above, by switching between the first mode and the second mode, it is possible to cause the player character to perform a number of different types of actions, such as firing an item that affects a field character at a targeted field. The character on the field and firing a combat character that engages in combat with the field character on the field by inputting an operation to cause the play. All right, so basically this is an amendment to their mechanic of throwing a ball only within battle to catch a Pokemon. So this is like, a wild, I don't know, Pikachu has appeared, and he has no owner, and you beat him up, and then you throw a Pokeball in battle as an item. They're making an amendment to that, probably because of Pokemon Legends Arceus, so that you can aim. You can use a single input following a second input, basically the menu, to aim in a direction within a 3D space to throw a ball, and that's also apparently copyrighted. That is, I don't envy lawyers having to go through this. This is the last patent. This involves writing. So in previous games like so the present invention relates to a game program. Yep. Prior art includes games in which a player character can ride an object and move through a virtual space. This is about riding Pokemon. Ride around the field with Pokemon rides. In previous games like this, there was room for improvement in switching between objects to ride. Therefore, the object of the present invention is to provide a game program, a game system, an information processing device, and an information processing method that enables smooth switching between multiple boarding objects in a game in which a player character rides an object and moves around. To solve the above problems, the present invention adopts the following configuration. The game program of the present invitation causes a computer of an information processing device to control a player character in a virtual space based on an operation input, and when a boarding object that the player character can board is selected from amongst objects owned by the player character, and a boarding instruction is given, causing the player character to board, the boarding object and become mobile. Also, when a first operation input is given to the computer while the player character is in the air, the game program causes the player character to board an aerial boarding object that can move in the air from among the boarding objects and become mobile in the air, and moves the player character boarder, the aerial boarding object, in the air based on the operation input while the player character is boarding the aerial boarding object. According to the above, a boarding object can be selected and the player character can board the boarding object, and when the player character is in the air, the first operation input can be performed to instantly board the player character on the aerial boarding object. What the heck? Okay, so this basically, I'm going to not read the rest and spare you all of it. This is basically saying that there's like a full claim here too. I guess I need to fully read for the claims on it. This is basically saying that Nintendo owns the patent to the ability, whether on the ground or in the air, to take an item out of your inventory and simultaneously board that item for the purpose of motion and movement. I'm wondering, like, how far that goes, because it's the thing that makes it special, like, in the sense that something like The Witcher 3, when you get on a horse, or, what is the, Ghost of Tsushima, or Tsushima, you get horses in that game. You don't necessarily take them out of your inventory, but you whistle and call for them. And that's what happens in freaking Breath of the Wild. Is that patented too? Can you, and a horse comes? Is that patented? Like, Witcher did it first. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. That feels not predatory, but it feels, I don't know what it feels like. It feels wrong, but I don't know what it feels right, you know? Like, I don't know. Will Pog says, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead, copyright a Pokeball, but don't keep me from throwing an item to capture a creature. Software Dev Battle Royale, says Chizo. They didn't specify which program language or calculations exactly. It would be the same thing for Marvel to patent throwing a shield that returns to the user. Yeah, kind of. But no. It would be if Marvel patented the use of throwing anything and then having it return to the user, because they're specifically saying item. Like, they're not talking Pokeball. Shield is too narrow. We can't define this as a shield. If the next DC movie has a dude who throws if Boomerang throws a boomerang and it comes back to him, straight to jail. Straight to jail. That's just like Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, that is asinine. This wasn't even where we were going tonight, but that's what tonight's episode is. Tonight's episode is a brief look, and we're probably gonna jump into this more. I think I need to delve back into this and do a proper YouTube video on it. A brief look at Nintendo versus Palworld. Let me read. I don't know if you guys have seen Palworld's their statement that kind of let us know a little bit of what these patents, or what the lawsuit was about and what these patents were for. I'm going to read this statement to you guys, okay? I know I've been reading a lot, but there's just so much information, you know what I mean? So much information. As announced on September 19th, the Pokemon Company and Nintendo Company, hereinafter referred to as the plaintiffs, have filed a patent infringement lawsuit against us. This is Pocket Pair speaking. We have received inquiries from various media outlets regarding the status of the lawsuit, and we would like to report the details and current status of this case as follows. 1. Details of the lawsuit. The plaintiffs claim that Palworld, released by us on January 19, 2024, infringes upon the following 3 patents held by the plaintiffs and are seeking an injunction against the game and compensation for a portion of the damages incurred between the date of registration and the patents registration of the patents and the date of filing of this lawsuit. This is crazy. Okay. Two targeted patents. Patent 7545191. That was applied for July 30th, 2024, and it was registered August 27th, 2024. 4 kicks. Let's find out when Palworld release. I'm just curious. Palworld release date. January 19th, 2024. Patent number 1 was both applied for and registered after the game's release. You mean to tell me they filed a patent? They really did. They filed a patent. Now, this was an early release on Xbox, but still an early access. They filed, is it still early access technically? I'm going to look. They filed a patent. Filed a patent for what Palworld was doing after the release. I don't know, man. After Palworld was released. I had heard that. I thought that my information was more correct in that the Japanese version was earlier, but this statement for the specific patents is coming from Pocket Fair and another Japanese company. And that, if that information is right, this was after the release of Palworld. Palworld is still in early access. It's still technically an early access game. Okay, so we're still calling that early access. Well, hey, it's Bex coming in, Webby. I hope all is well. God bless you, my friend. God bless you as well, Bex. Glad that you're here. Welcome to the Webb Show. All right, patent 7493117. That application date was February 26th, 2024, and the registration date was May 22nd, 2024. Also after January 19th release date. Like, very soon after, but still after. This is looking shady. Patent 7528390. Applied for March 5th, 2024. Register date, July 26, 2024. This is what stinks about this, though, is that Nintendo has the patents. It's pretty crappy that these patents were filed after the release of the game that they're suing, but it looks like Pocket Pair didn't patent these mechanics. And so, at a grassroots level, Nintendo is set up to win this case. They have the patents, and Pocket Pair has infringed upon them. But if this was in the U.S., this would be shut down so easy. But the copyright and patent law is just different in Japan. So I don't know enough to know how it's going to play out. We have to wait and see. But surely there has to be some level of common sense that can be used here. Part 3, summary of the claim. An injunction against Palworld. This is where it gets bad because an injunction could shut them down. I think that's what Nintendo really wants. Remember how earlier I talked about how Pocket Pair has a deal with Sony Music and Aniplex? An injunction would probably state, hey, we want you to pay the damages. The damages, I think I remember how much the damages were. Hold on. How much damages? I don't know how to do this. Damages for Palworld. Pokemon and Nintendo are seeking $64,000 in damages from Pocket Pair. $64,000. Just above the median annual income for United States citizens. What? Chizo says, I'm on Pocket Pair's side, but I don't know the legality of the amendment. They only patented the mechanics after Palworld release, specifically because it was successful, says Wilpog. The thing is, it's still in early access, though, so I don't know if the courts will consider it released or not. They don't want the money. They want to shut it down. They want this injunction. That's what they want. They want. I don't know the. Oh wow, the amount was right there. I just needed to translate it. I don't know all the specificities of what this injunction calls for, but most likely it calls for the removal of the game. You can't sell any more copies, and you need to delist the game. That's more than likely what they want. Payment of 5 million yen plus late payment damages to the Pokemon Company. Payment of 5 million yen plus late damages to the Nintendo Company. That is crazy. We will continue to assert. I'm so proud of Pocket Pair for doing this. We will continue to assert our position in this case through future legal proceedings. Please note that we will refrain from responding individually to inquiries requiring this case. If any matters arise that require public notice, we will announce them on our website. I am so impressed, though. You guys don't realize Pocket Pair is an indie company. I'm so impressed that they are taking on the behemoth that is Nintendo, and they probably wouldn't be able to do it if Pocket Pair wasn't such a breakout success and if they hadn't made so much money on this game. Well, yeah, does injunction mean removal? Because my understanding is injunction is basically like a lawful order to do something. Because like it can't mean specifically removal, because you could file an injunction towards someone who harms you physically, like in the real world, and it doesn't mean that person is removed from the world. You know what I mean? But let's define it specifically. Yeah, an injunction is an authoritative warning or order, a judicial order that restrains a person from beginning or continuing an action threatening or invading the legal right of another, or that compels a person to carry out a certain act to make restitution to an injured party. So likely the terms of the injunction are, you can't sell this game anymore. Take it down. Stop selling the game. That is probably what it is, but we don't know. It could be more than that, you know? It could be stop selling this game and no longer do business. Who knows? Who knows? You know what I mean? So it would be interesting because there's so many things. It could be remove these, sell the game, but remove these mechanics, which would effectively kill the game because people love the game as it is and have been enjoying it and playing it for so long. And if they had to basically take all of these patented mechanics out of the game, it would kind of change what the game is. You know what I mean? It would kind of change it altogether. So that could be that. It could be stop selling the game so long as these patents are still being infringed on. You know what I mean? So it could be a couple different things. Oh, Chizo says they have made some changes to the mechanics. Have they? I don't know about that. Let's see. Palworld changes mechanics. Oh, after lawsuit. That'd be a better way to do it. All right, Palworld drops a this is on Reddit. On the R Gaming News says Palworld drops a massive update that further distances the survival game from Pokemon following the Nintendo lawsuit, and fans couldn't be more proud. Justice for Palworld. What did they do? The update is really good, enjoying it immensely on PS5. The only thing I still hate is the loss of throwing pals out. It really messed up the flow. What? They folded. You can't throw a pal out? The devs need to come up to one up instead. Give everyone a PAL launcher, a shoulder-fired rocket launch that you load the PAL spear into, and then fire at enemies, exploding with whatever elemental damage the PAL does. That could be awesome. 6-shot revolver, and when you hit Q and E, your character rotates the bullet part. That's amazing. Okay, just shoot it out. So what else changed? Do we know? What else changed? Okay, so Chizo says when you summon your pals, they now appear at your side instead of where you throw the sphere. Huh. That feels a little bit like they are working on a settlement. Doesn't that sound like a settlement to you? That sounds like a settlement to me. All right. Has removed the ability for players to throw out a pal containing their pals instead. Instead, players simply summon their pal to appear directly next to them. This change has been almost universally hated by Palworld fans, although how players have responded has been quite different. I'm glad to know that the fan base is being overall sympathetic to what Palworld has to do. You know, gotta love how an NDA works too. Oh boy, do I know about an NDA? I think it's also ironically fitting that I have little Pokemon versions of everyone in chat just rocking along on the bottom while we talk about Palworld. That's amazing. I wonder if you can get Palworld versions. Should I see if you can get Palworld versions of those little avatars to stand in solidarity with Pocket Pair? Oh, man, with that Palworld Pal Steam Workshop, shut up. Guys, this is completely unhinged, but I can do it. I can do it. There is an update, so you can do pals instead of Pokemon. LOL! Should we do it? Guys, chat, comments, everyone, let me know what you think. In the comments in the chat, but at the bottom, if you're an audio listener, you don't know, everybody has their own unique sprite at the bottom of the screen, and those sprites right now are currently Pokemon, but I have the ability to make them pals instead, and that feels glorious, gloriously ironic and beautiful. And you can also find different pal spheres. That feels amazing. That feels amazing to me. Maybe I shouldn't indulge, but it feels amazing. Well, guys, that is the bulk of what I have to talk about today. I would love if everyone under the sound of my voice would consider going to reachconf.com and get ready for Reach Conference. It's coming back in November of this year in Orlando, Florida. If you want to meet me in real life, I plan to be there. And I've got a deal for you. For the first 100 tickets, if you use code WEBBY, WEBBY, you can get $10 off your order of your tickets. And everything's kind of piecemealed a little bit, so you can pick and choose and find the options that are most affordable for you. Would love for you guys to be there. But not only would it support me, it'll save you $10. That's basically a whole carton of eggs. So, go get your eggs, you know what I mean? So do that and come hang out with me at Reach Conference 2025 in Orlando this November. Would love to hang out with you guys. Would love that. And that pretty much, that's pretty much the end of our show. I was going to talk about the Gamer Club. Let me briefly mention that, and then we'll keep going. The Gamer Club is kind of like a book club. It is this initiative that I started in January, and maybe we'll talk more about it next week because I got off on a tangent of Palworld this time. It is basically a book club, but instead of reading a book every month, we play a game. And then the last week of the month, inside of my Discord, we chat about it. Like right now, we just finished playing the game Unravel. In January, we played Spiritfarer, and in February, we played Unravel. February is the shortest month. Let's let our words come out correctly. So we played a short game. It's been 2 platformers kind of back to back, so I think we're going to try out something new. But we're deciding that right now, and come March, we'll kick things off with another game, and it's going to be a really good time. I've really enjoyed it, and the whole idea came from this idea of like me not finishing very many games, and I needed a little bit of help, a little skin in the game, a little incentive to help me start a game. And you don't have to complete these games, but at least give them a fair shake. Don't boot them up one time and never play them again. So if that's something you're interested in, well, my Discord is linked everywhere, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, in the description of the podcast. Click on that Discord link, jump in, and say, @WebbyPumpkin, I would like to learn more about Gamer Club. And I will get you all the information you need to know, including getting you added to the channel within the Discord where we have these conversations. Would love you to be there. We take into account what systems everyone has. So, if no one has a Nintendo, which isn't the case, but if no one has a Nintendo Switch, we're probably not going to play Let's Go Pikachu. You know what I mean? So we might play Palworld once it comes to everything, but I doubt that we'll see Palworld on the Switch. Who knows? Palworld's pretty fun. Maybe I should throw that out as another suggestion. Thank you all so much. I hope that I keep doing that. I keep hitting the wrong buttons every time. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Tune in at a live stream anytime, Monday, Tuesday, really Thursday, and then early on Fridays at twitch.tv/WebbyPumpkin. We'd love to chat with you about Palworld or anything else you want to talk about. Love you guys. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Toodles.
The Webb Show is on tonight. Come along, it's pure delight.